Morning.
Hey, good morning.
Façam um scan no QR Code. Façam um scan no QR Code que vão ter ao site. Façam um scan no QR Code que vão ter ao site. Ah. Seu Sérgio.
Então,
Como está? Portem-se bem que estamos em direto para o YouTube. Hein?
workshop, tens algum? Não. Não? Siga, até já. Obrigado.
Macedo, em direto para o YouTube, o que é que está a achar?
Isto está a ser muito interessante, ao nível de correr para cima e para baixo.
Certo.
Muito bom.
Crossfit à borla.
Quase, exato. Por acaso, por falar nisso, apareçam no Fitness Set. Já foi.
O que está a achar?
Shopping!
Jesus. O que é que você está a achar?
Ok, isto está a ser uma experiência muito enriquecedora. Temos uma fila muito grande e estamos ligeiramente atrasados do planeamento.
Ok.
Portanto, acho que já disse isto hoje.
E o que dizer às pessoas que nos estão a ver em casa?
Ainda bem, peraí, estão a ver-nos em casa? Já cá deviam estar, o que é que estão a fazer em casa? Hã? Já cá deviam estar, as inscrições abriam às 9.
Pronto. Paparazzis, sponsors, a Marta da Elite. Não é, Marta?
É,
É, pois.
agora está a ser espetacular.
Até agora está a ser espetacular. Há café ali em baixo.
Eu não vou nem perguntar onde é que está ligado.
Está ligado a uma powerbank, mas estamos em direto para o YouTube.
Olha que bom. Olha,
Pronto. Querem dizer alguma coisa? Como sponsors?
queremos que toda a gente que aqui efetivamente entre naquele auditório, antes disso passe aqui pela tendinha do Ativo Banco para conhecer o Ativo Banco. Isso é que é
Vá, passem aqui, antes de irem para ali, para conhecer aqui o que o Ativo Banco vos tem para oferecer. Era meu, a minha caneta. Onde é que estava?
Estava aí. Não sei como é que me
Yeah.
Quem é que está a ver isso aqui?
Não sei.
Ninguém.
Não faço a mínima ideia.
Facebook.
Não foi, já fiz o share do link para o stream do YouTube.
Mas isso não ia ver nada. Isso depois dá para ver offline, não é?
Dá. Fica gravado.
Tremido e caralho.
Sim, cheio de trepidação. Sim, Marcelo, em direto
Bem.
para o YouTube. O que é que está a achar?
Ainda não começou? Mas
Não,
estou a achar muito
ainda
bem.
não estás a achar muita coisa. Já foste beber café?
Já.
Pronto.
Ainda estás a fazer um live stream?
Estou, pois.
Já tínhamos um site para o password da Wi-Fi.
Diz?
Já tínhamos um site para o password da Wi-Fi.
Vê como é que está aí o stream, a ver se isso aparece.
Já tive a ver.
Está a dar?
Tá, eu não preciso de o link.
Está aí. Carlos Mota a partilhar coisas.
Se eu descobrir qual é o botão de está aqui. Estás lá em cima?
Ainda estou lá em cima. Queres ir o micro?
Tínhamos a cena da password.
Diz aí alguma coisinha ao microfone. Olha lá, não sejas shy. Diz alguma coisinha para o microfone, para as pessoas. Não é para mim. Hã?
Tem porque ela está no seu destaque mais.
Fazer aquela cena.
Então se é para tirar uma selfie, tiro aqui assim. Faço live stream, fico aqui assim meia hora.
A questão é que não vais conseguir. Tivemos depois.
Em quê?
Vais ao Porto agora em dezembro, para irmos ver Correria ao Art Club.
Brujeria? Quando é que é?
É agora dia 10 ou 8 de dezembro.
Provavelmente não.
Não? E depois de Sabaton e Access?
Em que dia?
Dia 20 e qualquer coisa de janeiro.
Depende. Depende. Se a criança decidir nascer por essa altura, não. Vamos começar isto?
Diz-me se ouves daí. Diz-me se ouves alguma coisa.
Estamos quase a começar. Uns minutinhos de atraso.
Desculpa lá.
Sim.
É que se arranja água.
Água, aqui em baixo. Penso que é aqui em baixo. Se não há,
Mas garrafinhas de água e tal, assim.
pergunta ali assim em baixo. É ali? É ali? É. Hã? O quê? Moto.
Vamos agora que eu posso ir.
Vamos começar?
Fazer isto?
Acho que podemos, ó, moto. Tens micro?
Ainda bem, vou tomar um auditório com a voz. Desculpem o atraso, os discos demoraram um bocadinho mais do que nós tínhamos previsto, mas vamos começar finalmente o Netflix.
6, 5, 4, 3.
Antes de mais, bem-vindos. Obrigado a todos por estarem presentes. Bem-vindos a este que é o nosso primeiro DevFest. A nossa hashtag oficial é DevFest CBR, ok? Coimbra. Isto é muito engraçado, porque é que nós começámos com a ideia de fazer um DevFest? Foi uma conversa com muitas pessoas aqui presentes que estão também na organização e a pergunta inicial era porque é que havíamos de fazer? E a segunda pergunta era porque não? E depois de um dizer nada de jeito, nós ficámos totalmente entusiasmados em fazer eventos em Coimbra. Tínhamos totalmente uma atitude do it. E depois, à medida que as coisas foram acelerando, ok, mas isso não é trabalho. Há inúmeros grupos cá em todo o país que conseguiram fazer 2, 3 eventos e que realmente fazer uma coisa cheia dá muito trabalho, mas é fundamental nós termos eventos tecnológicos, ter uma comunidade tecnológica em Coimbra. Então, depois de algum mergulho, isto é uma frase extremamente institucional, nós chegamos à conclusão que não, temos que realmente criar uma comunidade em Coimbra, isto existe em todo o mundo e muitos de nós sentia falta de, não todos os dias, mas mensalmente ter um gathering, um evento em que nós tivesse simplesmente falar de tecnologia ou pelo copo, muitas vezes aconteceu isso. Então decidimos reativar um grupo que era GDG Coimbra. GDG, ok, vem de Google Developers Group, ok. Eu sei que nós temos Google no nome, não estamos restritos em nada a tecnologias Google, ok. Agora vou fazer só uma passagem para inglês. Guys, we have here John Sano from Spotify. Just saying that he's a... I'm mentioning this because we also care about other technologies, not only Google. You are here and you're from iOS. I don't know if you're going to live here. Although, of course, we like Android. So we decided to create this in Coimbra, okay? But, sorry, back to Portuguese. Existem mais grupos em Coimbra, ok? Os primeiros foram os Açores, ok? E é uma história fantástica porque malta dos Açores, na altura, eles ainda não tinham 18 anos e conseguiram fazer eventos com 300 pessoas. Conseguiram cativar e criar uma comunidade que ainda hoje existe nos Açores e vem com muita força para o ano. Temos também, claro, o Porto, que tentar ter um DevFest no preciso momento que nós estamos a ter. Obviamente não tem speakers tão fixe nem malta tão fixe. E temos, claro, Lisboa, que são se não descobriram, estão ali ao fundo. E vão estar aqui também pela noite com projetos altamente. O Imagine Wood, o Imagine Wood. Passem por lá, é mesmo muito divertido. Vá, também uma salva de palmas para a malta de Lisboa. O que estamos a fazer? Portanto, eu falei-vos dos nossos agradáveis Good Fridays, ok? Não, estes não somos nós. Isto é uma foto também do Google, da Stock Parties. Nós temos 5 Gather Hours, ok? Onde nós decidimos o que é que vamos fazer a seguir, em que simplesmente, muitas vezes acabamos simplesmente por ir para um copo e falar coisas, às vezes tem tecnologia, outras vezes não. O objetivo aqui é mesmo ter uma comunidade consistente. Temos também eventos no Developer Stories, aliás, e há uma coisa muito característica dos nossos eventos que é, e eu quero ver qual é que vai ser daqui hoje, nós somos muito prós a criar hashtags, ok? Desta foto, saiu um fantástico hashtag para a minha informação. Tivemos aí no Aero Accent, ok? Isto vai ser uma preview ou não do que vocês vão ter ao almoço. Tivemos também workshops, neste caso, este foi o nosso primeiro grande evento, o Drive, em que nós temos 50 pessoas e surgiu uma hashtag fantástica, ok? Foi Java Coffee, e a sétima vez as pessoas começaram a achar piada. Portanto, estou aqui a ver a insistência que eu vou fazer hoje. Tivemos um workshop altamente, onde tivemos o nosso herói, ok? E hoje, finalmente, temos o DevFest. Temos um conjunto excelente de speakers, ok? Eu não podia estar mais orgulhoso das pessoas que responderam. Vamos começar, agora isto vai ser parte um secante, não adormeçam. Começamos às 10 horas com o Miguel Oliveira, portanto vai ser às 10h30. Logo a seguir às 11 vamos ter o Francisco Esteves. Vamos também ter em paralelo o Alexandre Russell e o Pedro Lopes na Planet Studio. Vão ter um workshop 3D fantástico. E depois vamos ter aqui neste palco o Henrique Garcia Navarro. I hope I've pronunciated that correctly. A zona dos workshops é no piso 1, quando vocês entraram, ao pé das bancas dos nossos sponsors, e a zona de workshops. Depois à tarde, vamos começar às 2 horas com o género de Sleep Method Rounds, portanto vai ser brutal. O Filipe Barroso do GDG Coimbra, do GDG, quero trazer para cá. GDC Lisboa vai ter uma talk então aqui, uma sala de palmas. Vamos ter paralelamente também o Renato Rodrigues com o workshop de Web Security e o João Sandal às 3 horas. Um pouco mais para a frente vamos ter o Francisco Franco, que vem falar de kernel, vem falar de user space e vem falar de um tópico fantástico que é mutation design, ok? Isto é um conceito que ele anda a desenvolver juntamente com o Liam e é mesmo muito fixe. Paralelamente vamos ter um workshop de Progressive Web Apps com o Henrique. E às 6 horas vamos ter o Fernando Serras. Depois, por último, às 6 da tarde, vamos ter o Celso Martinho, da Bright Pixel, dar uma talk From Tech to Product. E às 6h30 vamos ter o Luís Silva, que vai dar uma talk Facts Hello World, What's Next? Gostaria de ficarem para o fim, porque nós temos aqui um desafio a decorrer, ok? Nós conseguimos o patrocínio da JetBrains e com isto licenças para o IntelliJ e temos 2 licenças que vamos dar à melhor foto e para isso vocês têm que utilizar a hashtag DFSCBR. Pode ser Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, escolham a vossa rede social. Isto são alguns exemplos de fotos que vocês podem usar. Se conseguirem juntar a malta toda também é fantástico. Podem simplesmente fazer uma foto mais simples. Para não precisarem que somos machistas, temos outra pessoa aqui também. Um pôr do sol por trás e depois temos toda a equipa que esteve aqui na organização deste evento. Acho que podem ver pela qualidade da foto quem fez as montagens. Não tirem fotos, por favor. Estes slides não vão ser disponibilizados. Como podem ver esta foto. Só um pequeno à parte do jogo que vocês estiveram a jogar antes. Foi feito pela malta do LCD do Porto, ok? Uma salva de aplausos para todos eles. Diga-nos.
Funcionar? Isto é tragédia prestes a acontecer. Eu aqui assim na ponta. Mota. Fala aí, ó. Dois, 10, 9, 8, 10. Happy New Year! Woohoo! Ah.
Malta, something something I forgot to mention. A round of applause to our speakers. Agradecer também ao Eduardo Esteves, ao João Dias, ao Henrique Macedo, à Rafaela Ferro, que nos ajudaram a fazer este design fantástico dos nossos logos, das nossas animações. Eles foram pessoas fascinantes e fazem um trabalho incrível. E agora, não me alongando mais, temos Miguel Oliveira, que fez o internship tanto na Google como no Facebook, está a acabar o seu doutoramento e por isso tal get that job at Google and Facebook.
Good morning, everyone. It's very nice to be here. So many people today. As Carlos said, I've worked at Google and Facebook before, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the application process with these companies. But despite the name, several companies use the same standardized process, so I think this talk can be useful if you want to apply to other companies as well. But disclaimer that what I'm going to tell here today is my personal opinion and from what I've experienced and what I read on the web. So I'm not talking about this company's opinion. So I'll talk a little bit about me and then go through the application process as I mentioned. I'm going to talk just a little bit about CPTs. I also did several extracurricular activities like teaching, going with students, and also more competitions. Lately, I'm a PhD student at Europe. I did internships at Google Zurich, working on Google Shopping, so it's really product search, and also worked in Google New York on AdSense. And later, I also worked at Facebook London on Buck, which is an efficient build system applications. Next May, I will join Facebook London as a full-time software engineer. So just give you a little bit about context about the perks. So these companies offer free food, game rooms. This is my favorite perk ever in the Zurich office. The water lounge is a dark room with aquariums and birds singing, filled with chair massages and also combatives with sparkling. It's very nice to relax. And actually this picture has more light than normal for them to take the picture. It's very nice. So this is Google New York. We could have dinner with a view to the Empire State Building, which is very nice. Facebook London has all these flags and also has a great culture, and that's why I'm looking forward to work there next May. I also went to the headquarters in Miller Park. We have this nice Facebook wall where you can actually write something. And also in California, the weather is always nice, so you can go to the rooftops and also relax or have a nice warm Fridays. So, after this introduction, for me, the best part working in these companies is being surrounded with brilliant people and usually very helpful. You can learn a lot and also grow a lot as a person and engineer. Teams are usually quite small, about 7 people, but there's a great emphasis on collaboration between teams. You have 2 ladders, so individual contributor and management, so you are not forced to move into management in your career. You can stay as a developer if you want to. And these companies deal with really huge scale. We're talking about really a lot of computers that they don't announce publicly how many they have. But basically, backend teams, we are usually talking at least in terms of terabytes of information. And we have more than 1 billion users hitting your front ends. So everything has to take care of this scale. So these companies, when they are hiring someone, they try to see how do you cope with problems in terms of the complexity that it takes for the computer to do. So for a certain task, you have always to consider, will this be able to cope with the number of users we have, and make decisions accordingly. Every piece of code goes through a code review process, which is also a very entertaining process. In the beginning, it's basically being criticized all over the place. It's really nice because you can learn a lot. One thing that you should avoid, and this is quite common, imposter syndrome, is basically feeling that you're not good enough to apply, or because you're afraid of being seen as a fraud, because you see so many smart people, even in these companies or even on the internet. This is also a common comment on the internet in several forums. Despite having your achievements, a lot of people feel like a fraud because they don't feel that they are as good as other people. This is a common feeling in these companies for new hires, because they see surrounded by brilliant people that are very good at what they do, and they don't, in the beginning, they don't feel that they will be able to keep up. But you just have to take into account that these people are actually smart, yeah, that's true. But usually they have 1 or more years of experience working those systems, so it's natural that they are proficient in them and they will be able to solve problems that you're not currently able to do so because you were just hired. Okay, just calm down and don't feel that you're not good enough. But on the other side of the spectrum, especially with students, how many students we have here today? Quite a few. So one common thing that we see with students is that they feel that they are amazing, they are the best of the best right out of school, and they want to lead projects and so on. So I think that's a good feeling. I think it's good to have some confidence, but you have to realize that if you're just finishing school, you're probably not that good, okay? At least in a world's scale. This is called the Dunning-Kruger effect. Usually people, the shorter experience they have, the more confident they have in their abilities. Okay? I'm not saying that you shouldn't have confidence, just bear in mind that if you're out of school, you're probably not an expert in C++ or whatever that you learned at school. You should get some experience, and when you get some actual work experience, you realize that you don't know as much as you thought you know, and then after a few years, then you become confident in your skills. So, the application process usually starts with submitting a CV on the careers website. You can also be reached out on LinkedIn by recruiters, or if you know someone in these companies, they could make you a referral if they actually worked with you in the past. So it's a bit pointless, for example, for you to ask me to do a referral for you because I didn't work with anyone here, I think, in the past. So in the referral process, employees are asked like, when did you work together, what kind of projects, what skills the person showed. So if you actually didn't work with that person, you won't be able to do a referral. But if you do so, a referral is a great signal because it shows confidence to the employer that you actually are suggesting someone that is a strong candidate for a position. Then the CV is screened by recruiters to check your experience. Optionally, you can schedule a call to discuss the available positions, what the interview process is like, and so on. Then interviews, and after getting interview feedback, the company decides whether to make an offer or not, and you can negotiate. I'm talking mostly about technical positions because this is my experience. So technical positions are mostly in these three branches. Software engineer, that it's basically developer, it's what most people do. Then we have software engineering tests. These are not the people that write tests, okay? These are people that focus on, for example, frameworks on how to test things, so that software engineers that can use those frameworks. For example, if you have a distributed system, you have to have a way to test it before getting into production, okay? Usually software engineers in tests take care of those test frameworks that allow you to actually test your software. Then site reliability engineers or production engineers are engineers closer to production systems, monitoring and take care of things when something goes wrong. The interview stage there are two different situations. For the students here, you can apply for an internship while you are a student. These are basically 2 or 3 technical interviews, and then if you pass, then you can have a host match that would be basically your manager in the internship. For full-time positions, we're talking about 1 or 2 technical phone screens, and if you pass, the company will fly you over to the nearest office, where you do 4 or 5 technical interviews on site. All expenses are covered. So I'm just going to talk very briefly about CVs. These companies receive thousands of applications per day, so you have to have something in your CV that makes you stand out. Okay? If you are a student and just graduated with a good GPA, that's probably not good enough. Okay? It might be good enough you're from MIT or Stanford, but in general, it's not good enough. You should show some extracurricular activities or internships or something else besides your experience to make you stand out. Also, anything stated on your CV is fair game to be asked. Okay? If you claim that you are a C++ expert, that's quite a common thing for people to do on CVs. Odds are that you might be paired with an interviewer from the C++ standards committee, and he will grill you. Just make sure if you state that you are an expert in anything, that you will be comfortable in talking about that topic with world experts. As I mentioned, extracurricular activities are a plus, especially if you are able to show some metrics. These are a couple of ones from myself. They are not ideal, but it's what I have. For example, as I mentioned, I really like programming competition, so I've been in the top 500 several times in Google Code Jam and Facebook Hacker. So I would say that I was in 2009, for example, top 500 in more than 10,000 people. In one of my projects, I tell that I improved the runtime performance of a machine learning system that took days previously to a few hours. Here, unfortunately, Google doesn't allow me to go into detail, but if possible, you should go in more detail, like tell actual percentages or concrete numbers about users, features that you did. you can give as an information that can tell the person that reads your CD if you did a good job or not. Okay, I'll give you a few more examples. So this is an example for Indian students that are some work. I recommend question and answers website. You can't see this data very well. It's not that important. Recruiters have like you're not even applying for anything representing the university, so it doesn't make any sense to have the university logo there. Then it has his GPAs, but he has a 747 there, an 86 point something, and a 9 point something. This doesn't tell me much, but what is the scale of these grades even? I might assume that the 747 is up to 10, in a 0 to 10 scale, but you can't be sure. For example, a friend of mine at Facebook, she has a GPA of 575. You could assume that this is a bad GPA, unless she told you that the scale is from 0 to 6. So it's what different countries use different systems, so you should be as clear as possible in your CV. Afterwards, so if you see a typo, please give your CV to someone else. Typo is a really bad sign. It signals that you didn't pay enough attention to your CV. Also mentions a few projects. For example, implementing a civil Aristoteles is one of the projects. This is a classroom exercise. This doesn't make sense to try to impress a company. This is like 10 lines of code. It doesn't show anything. Also has an app, a quiz app that he developed and has a GitHub link. And this seems nice. And people will consult your GitHub to check your code. But when you go there, it's just 15 lines of code. This is terrible. It doesn't show anything. It only shows bad judgment in putting this on the CV. You should try to explore things that you did that are meaningful. Afterwards, this student also participates in programming competitions, but he mentioned second rounds and certain competition, but I have no idea what this is. I have no idea how many people participated, what getting to the second round means. You should try to be a little bit more specific. Technical skills, these are not very meaningful. For example, he mentions that he uses Windows. It's like, if you're applying for a software engineering job, we will expect that everyone knows how to use Windows, Linux, whatever you need, right? And in Android, it kind of depends. If you actually are an app developer, that's meaningful, but it should be more specific. And finally, the most interesting thing on the CD, personally, I think that it's winning your first prize in an app designing competition, but there are no details whatsoever.
Estamos em
It
direto
doesn't
no
tell what
Facebook.
the competition was about, what the app was about. It's kind of disappointing to get to and see something that seems very, very interesting, but you didn't put any interesting information there. So this is not to criticize this person. This is just to give you an example of a CV that you can probably write it and think that you explain everything, even in this last example that I mentioned. But if you give it to someone else that didn't know what this purpose was about, he'll probably probably be able to give you that feedback and tell you, look, I don't understand what this is. So it's very important that you try to give your CD to someone else. This is an example from a student that I get some tips, and he actually got a Google internship. In the first version of his CD, he also had this project. School projects are usually not very meaningful because they are not so close to actual work experience in a company or building your app for actual users. But here, the project seems interesting at first. So he says that he's trying to calculate the shortest path using Porto's public transport network. A public transport network is usually quite huge, so this seems like an actual challenge. He mentions like different algorithms that he tested, and I think heuristics as well, and he was able to reduce the calculation by only using some heuristics. So this seemed good, but as I mentioned before, I asked like, what are the metrics? What was the actual size of the network? What was the actual real improvement that you achieved? And when he told me that the size of the network was 100 nodes, I was very disappointed. Anybody can tell me why? Anyone? Just see if you're woke up or not. Okay, so I was very disappointed when he told me that the size of the network is just 100 because with 100 you don't need any heuristic. Any shortest path algorithm will give you an instant answer. So any heuristics that you may have tried are meaningless because even a worse algorithm than Dijkstra or ASTA will give you an answer instantly. Okay? So he actually scrapped this out of the CV because this was actually giving a bad impression if someone asks. Okay? So passing now to the interviews, just give me a sec. Interviews aim to test aptitude and not knowledge. What this means is that unless you state that you're expert in some topic, you will probably not be grilled on a certain subject. Okay? Companies are more focused, as I mentioned, to see how you think about problems, see if you can scale your solutions, and so on. But the most important thing is really how you think, how you tackle problems. Other people that were asked the same questions, and relative to the normal or the average or some standard that the company puts, they will tell if you did good enough or not. But your personal feeling will probably not be accurate. A common post on the internet about interviewing in these companies, it can be translated basically to this. I was asked to sort a list of numbers. I did it, but I was rejected in the interview. Okay, this is a bit of an exaggeration, but basically, if you are given an easy question and you solve it within the 45 minutes, it doesn't mean that you did well. That was probably just a warm-up question, and the interviewer was expecting you to do it quickly and then move on to more difficult questions. Okay? But this doesn't mean that if you answer 3 questions that you did well. It could be just 3 easy questions, and the interviewer would want more. Or that if you answered only 1 question that you did that badly. It could be a hard question, and so that there were a lot of things to discuss in that question alone, and that was enough. So, back creator of Extreme Programming. He's an engineer at Facebook. He gives a bit of insight what he looks for when giving an interview. So, trying to look in the eyes of the point of view of interviewers, they have 45 minutes to try to assess if this candidate would be hired or not. So they are trying to look for signals to reach that conclusion. Some of them that I think are quite important is how, when I present a problem to this person, how they approach it. Do they have a reasonable workflow? Do they consider constraints that they have? Do they make decisions too early? For example, I can start with a very brute force solution, a very slow solution, if the amount of data that I have is very small. If I want to just test something, I can start with something simple. If I go from 10 users to 1 million users, then I can evolve and improve my system, okay? It's very important to try to consider different trade-offs. We'll go into a bit of detail later. Another point of view on the same subject from a software developer manager at Amazon is basically that the interviewer is looking for 3 things. Basically, first, when you're presenting a problem, can you clarify the problem? It's very important to make sure that you understood the question that the interviewer is giving you, and to make sure that you are on the same ground. From what I read on the internet, it's very common in an interview for an interviewer to give a question. The interviewee think that he understood. They start writing code right away. And when they finish, after let's say 10-15 minutes, they realize, oh, I misunderstood the question. So I actually spent 15 minutes for nothing. Okay. And this is important because in your actual job, you'll have to do this every day. When I started at Facebook, my manager told me, so we have this build system, we have all this information in the build graph, but we don't have a convenient way to access this information. So we need a query engine. Now, go. Okay. And you have to drive, people are very independent and you are expected to drive the problem. What do people actually need nowadays? What can we do with the data that we have and move on? So after you understood the question, they will see your ability to actually identify a possible solution and different algorithms or data structures depending on the constraints that the interviewer poses. And finally, translate this into code. So in interviews, you will be expected to code almost always. In on-site interviews, it will be a whiteboard, and if in a phone screen, it will be either like a Google Doc or some code sharing platforms like Collab Edit. So for these reasons, communication with the interviewer is very important, and questions can be ambiguous and on purpose to see if you are able to clarify the question and make sure that you solve the problem that the interviewer actually wants you to solve. It's very important that you don't stay quiet. It's also very common. So you are thinking, you're quiet. You should try to practice thinking out loud. Because if you stay quiet for a long period of time, the interviewer has no idea what you're thinking. So if you're speaking out loud, at least the interviewer can give you tips if you're going the wrong direction, or just check that you're doing well in your thought process. And if you get stuck, ask for a hint. It's better than getting stuck forever. So my suggestion is to spend a few weeks to prepare, especially if you're a professional out of school, because these companies ask questions related to common algorithms and data structures that you learned in college, if you actually attended college. And if you didn't, then you need to study up a little bit. But just, I think that a little bit of review should be fine. So sorting linked lists, trees, binary search trees. Basically, in every interview cycle, there's a question on binary search trees. Hash tables, graphs. So these are basic things that you have in classes, and just a quick review should be okay. And then actually solve questions, interview questions. There are tons of websites. The last store I like. Career Cup is getting too overloaded with questions, so maybe it's not as good as it was in the past. But a common mistake is to look into these questions and like the question I mentioned before. So sort a list, sort, and it's done. That's not the way an interview goes. An interview usually starts with a simple problem, and then it evolves depending on different constraints. So I encourage you to look into different questions and then think. So how I would do the same problem but with extreme constraints. Let's say I don't have enough memory to store all the data. So how do I do this? How do I put the data on disk and then try to efficiently solve the same problem, getting some bunches of data from disk to memory at a time? I'll give an example later. And if possible, try to do mock interviews. So mock interviews is just training. Have someone interviewing you and give you feedback afterwards. One thing that I think is also very important is mental preparation. A lot of people, including myself, are very nervous in interviews. I almost bombed my first Google interview because I was just so nervous. I got asked a very simple question and I got stuck for like 15 or 20 minutes until the interviewer gave me a hint, and then I finally answered it and moved on. But applying to multiple companies helps a lot, I think, avoiding this kind of stress. So if you don't have all your eggs in the same basket, you will probably be more relaxed and see this as one more opportunity, not the only opportunity you have. Interview experience helps you being more confident, solving questions, and practice coding under pressure. I think participating in those programming competitions like Code Forces, Coder, whatever, will give you a good experience in coding under pressure. And finally, but very importantly, sleep properly and exercise. So interviews usually start with an icebreaker. It can be just what you do, what your projects as a hobby or at university, or your last work project, just to get the conversation started, or it could actually start with a simple puzzle. So this was an actual puzzle that I froze up for 15 or 20 minutes. I'm not going, it's a lot of text. You can see that later. I will share these slides. But this is a very, very simple question, but with nerves you can freeze. Then you almost always have coding questions. As I mentioned, either like Google Doc or writing on a whiteboard. And as I mentioned before, these questions are mostly focused on getting to see how the candidate thinks, how he approaches problems, and the things that actually go. It usually starts with something very simple, and after you solve it, then it evolves with different constraints. Try to find a more efficient solution in terms of time or in terms of space, or what if you have multiple computers instead of just one. It can evolve in a different ways. It's mostly, after that first coding phase, it can be just a discussion. And don't forget to test your code. So, just one example of a question that is quite simple, but has tons of different ways tons of different approaches. So, I give you, for example, 4 numbers, all of them between 1 and 3. This means that there must be a duplicate, right? So if I have 4 numbers, all between 1 and 3, there must be a duplicate. So I ask you to write a function that returns a duplicate number. This has a very simple approach. We can just test all the numbers, like two nested cycles, and if when I find a repeated number, I return it. If there are multiple numbers, you can return whatever. And it's important for you to review if you forgot the time complexities. So big O notation. So this takes n squared time and constant action space. But we can realize, so the numbers are between 1 and n, so we can use a simple hash table. For example, an array. So when I process a number, I see if I've seen the number before, this array, and if I did, I just return it. Otherwise, I mark this number as zero. So this approach would take just linear time, so it's much faster, but instead of constant space, it takes linear space to develop the hash table. So, but, and as I mentioned, so you code this, and then the interview will evolve, like different constraints, and see how you think and how you tackle different situations. What if this is the actual, I don't know, query data, NoSQL data, and it's too big to have in memory? Or it's too big to have a duplicate as a hash table in memory. So a simple approach would be just sort the numbers. If I can have the numbers in memory, I can sort them, and then duplicates will be adjacent to each other. Okay? So this would take n log n time and constant space. But this could evolve. What if I can't change the array? What if the data is too big to fit in memory? So I have to access disk. And so on. So it's, as I mentioned, just a discussion. I think it's an interesting question. It's very simple, but then it can evolve in many, many ways. Then we have system design. Especially in big companies like Google, Facebook, Amazon, whatever, they have to deal with use scales, as I mentioned. So in system design questions, basically you're asked how to design a certain system. And there's no right answer. Like, how do you design Facebook newsfeed? There's no right answer. It's just a starting point for you to have a discussion on how we build the system. One such example is actually a use case. You have log visits on your servers. Each log has maps between URLs and the number of visits that, I don't know, a load balancer or something registered. And now you want to know, so these logs are distributed in a cluster of computers. Now you want to know what are the top 10 URLs, most visited URLs among the whole system. There's no right answer. You can try to approach it in many different ways. I think in this question, map reduce is very useful. For example, one approach would be for each computer to process these maps. And let's say that I have 26 computers. Then I assign a letter to each of these computers. And then after each computer after the original computers have these visit log maps, I can send all the websites that start with letter A to one of the computers for them to assemble all the information and sum up the number of visitors. Then the sites starting with B to another, and so on until Z. Each of these computers compute their top 10, and finally I have 26 top 10s. I need to merge these 26 into a single top 10. This is not an ideal solution, but just to give you an idea what kind of thinking that you could have to approach these kind of problems. Another question that I really like is a hit hunter. This is an actual Dropbox interview. And as I mentioned, lots of companies, especially these days with clouds, face similar challenges. So lots of these companies will pose you with similar kinds of questions. So you have a website, and how do you count how many visitors you have in the last minute? This can start as a simple coding question. For example, a friend of mine at Dropbox, in a Dropbox interview, was asked, implement 2 functions. So assume that one machine, no concurrency issues, just 2 functions. One that logs the visit and one that returns the number of users. Okay. So you can try to solve this coding problem, and then naturally it will evolve, because in an actual website with many users, you will have different servers. Then you probably can't just fetch query the database for the users that logged in or hit the site on the last minute and then count. You can think of different ways. For example, having a list of the last 60 seconds, have a counter on each second, and when I move from one second to another, drop the 60th second, because I will enter a new minute. And again, these questions are just a starting point, and you can spend the full 45 minutes discussing different scenarios and approaches. So, finally, I'm going to give you a question that I actually faced at work. So, in a machine learning system, I had a list of data points, each had a value and a confidence score, and a list of query values. So, I wanted for a minimum confidence score n to compute for each query value the number of data points whose confidence was above this threshold, above or equal this threshold, and whose value was less than the query value. So one approach is simply for a query value, I go through all the data points, and if the value is less than the value of the query, and the confidence score is larger or equal, then I can. Okay. Another approach is to first filter the data points that are within the threshold, then sort the values, and use a binary search to find how many numbers are below the query value. So now my question to you is, what would you use? Approach A or approach B? And why? So on the left, the time complexity is key to the query values times n, and on the other side is the number of query values times log n because of the binary search and the sorting. No one? Personal opinion? So, yep. Good question. Why are you asking that?
Because if it's rather small, I can just use the new one. If it's large, the new one will become simply unmanageable.
So he said that the size is important because if it's very small, I can use the left one. If it's big, I can use the right one. Any other reason?
For starters, I'd start with that for starters, and then.
Yeah, good point. Because this question doesn't provide you with sufficient information. So, as I mentioned, you need to clarify. And initially, my team had a very low number of data points. So the approach on the left is perfectly fine. Then, when we increased to a few 100,000 of examples, then it started to take 1 hour to compute. So it's not very feasible. So we changed to the one on the right, and instead of 1 hour, this takes less than 1 second. But I think there are a few other reasons. The approach on the left is very easy to test. I have little doubt that it is correct because it goes through all the values, and I just need a few tests and I will be confident that it is correct. The approach on the right involves sorting, binary search as an auxiliary function, so it involves more engineering work, so you need to be certain that it's actually worth it. So, concluding, I think it's important to prepare for these interviews because they are different from real work environments, but I actually think that preparing will make you a better engineer if you do it properly. Stress, as I mentioned, can be your worst enemy. Try to find ways to relax and have a good night of sleep beforehand. Many people criticize these interview formats. It's still the best system that these companies know, and so it's the one they use, and lots of companies copy them using it. If you feel insulted to being asked these kind of questions, lots of experienced people do. They say they are not college students anymore, and they feel that these questions are not appropriate. That's a fine point of view, but I think that if you feel that way, there's probably not a cultural fit for the company. Remember that interviews are both ways, so if you are not happy with this system, I suggest that you skip these kind of companies, because you will not be happy working there, because you'll face these kind of issues every day. If you're not happy dealing with these kind of issues, you're probably not going to enjoy your work environment. So this is just references. I will share these slides. You can contact me using this email. Please don't add me on Facebook. I've already had a few friend requests. If I don't know you, I will not accept you. Okay? Even on LinkedIn, if I don't know you, I will not accept you. Reach out to me. I will be here during the day. More than happy to talk about working this company, this tips for preparation, fine. And afterwards maybe, but beforehand don't cold add people, because most people don't enjoy it. And yeah, if there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer. Thanks.
Está a funcionar?
Nós ficamos sem tempo para perguntas agora. Nós ficamos sem
Não sei se está a funcionar, Mota. Tá?
Ficamos sem tempo para perguntas agora, porque ligar no caixa ao dia podem simplesmente rodar, respondemos a todas as dúvidas que tiverem. E agora temos um fantástico coffee break à vossa espera.
Yay! Coffee! Yay!